Hey guys, this is Mark and Jonathan back for J&M Sports Talk, and we're finally predicting the SEC.
Yes, finally.
Yep, been looking forward to this one.
Yep.
So Jonathan, let's kick it off. Players to watch.
All right. Well, I'm gonna start off with the Florida quarterback, whoever you are. I think that's really gonna be the big key to the East is who's that quarterback for Florida. Will make a big difference in how the East is played out. So I think it's gonna be Franks. He'd definitely be the safe pick the way things are going. But whoever is that quarterback for Florida is gonna have a big opportunity to make a culture change there with Mullen there to fix things, get things back to where they used to be. So I really like to watch whoever's going to be at Florida is going to be huge for the SEC.
Yeah, so piggybacking on Mullen, his former quarterback, Nick Fitzgerald.
Okay.
Interesting to see how he comes back from the injury from last year.
Mm-hmm.
He had ankle surgery over the off season. Really, me including him on this list is mainly just to see how he does. I don't necessarily think that he'll be one of the best players, but I'm very interested to see how he rebounds. You know, he's been one of the most productive players in the SEC the last few years, rushing and throwing. So I'm interested to see how he does this year.
Yep, that's a really good pick. Yeah, he's gonna be. I think he'll be fine for Mississippi State, and if as he goes, their offense will go. Jim Moorhead there, you saw what he was able to do at Penn State as the OC there. So I really am excited to see how he does because they're going to be a factor in the West. However they end up doing, they'll definitely be a factor, and he's going to be a big part of that.
Yeah, Mississippi State. We were talking earlier. They have the most returning starters coming back in the SEC. 16 returning starters. So that is as a factor in kind of why I picked him as well.
All right. So another guy for me, Derek Brown, defensive tackle for Auburn. He's one of those guys where I think he's in a situation where him or Nick Coe, whoever ends up being the guy there at defensive tackle, both have a great opportunity with the guys surrounding him that are so good to really be an impact player because Auburn's just loaded with talent defensively, especially in the front seven. They might have the best front seven in the SEC, if not the country. You could definitely argue that with Clemson and Ohio State, we've talked about as well. But with so many guys to worry about from Deshaun Jackson to T.D. Moultrie, Auburn's got way too many weapons on that side of the ball that, defensive tackle is probably going to get overlooked at times, and they're good enough they're going to be able to dominate. So I really like them to have great years and give a little love to the defense side a little too.
Yeah, we've done a lot of offensive players, so kind of balancing us out. I like DeAndre Swift, the sophomore running back for Georgia. I really like how they used him last year in those big playoff games. He got some action. He has a good dose of power, but he also has some speed to get to the outside. So I think he'll really have a good year. Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, they're both gone, both in the NFL. So I think he'll get plenty of touches.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting to see Georgia with one premier running back. I mean, they've got some other guys that are going to get some touches, but this will be the first time in a while that they've had one guy that's going to be the straight number one running back. So that'll be interesting to see how they work that. So I'm excited. That's a good pick.
Appreciate it there.
Now that we've talked about some players to watch, what about some games you're excited for?
So we mentioned this in earlier shows, but that Auburn-Washington matchup in Atlanta, that should be a great one. Another one I have my eye on is the Tennessee-West Virginia neutral site game. Interested to see how Pruitt coming in from Alabama and that defense of Tennessee being really good. The cupboard was not bare for the Vols, and I like for them to put up a good fight against West Virginia. West Virginia, we mentioned at our Big 12 show that they have one of the better offenses in college football. But I think Tennessee will give them a good run in that first game.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm looking forward to those games as well. Another one I'm looking forward to is that LSU-Miami game. That's going to be a fun one to watch. It'll be a good opportunity for both teams on a national spotlight for one, we got LSU who's got to prove that, that they're back and they've got plenty of questions needing answered. And then you also got a team like Miami who's having to prove that last year wasn't really a fluke and then they're not going anywhere with Mark Richt. So I'm really excited for that game. And then, of course, we could go on and on about all the great conference games that'll be all year. If there's one thing the SEC is there's drama with every team you play every week. So the South love football, and it's never more clear than the SEC. So of course you got all them.
Yeah, and then at the end of the season, you've got all those traditional matchups with the ACC.
Yep.
You know, we talk about a few of these. Florida traveling to FSU. You got Georgia Tech traveling to Athens and Georgia. And then you've got South Carolina traveling to Clemson. It'll be interesting to see how those games shape out.
Yep. Will be.
All right, so let's get to our predictions for the conferences. Let's start in the East.
All right, cool. So this is probably going to surprise no one if they followed us last year. But, for me, the team to beat in the East is South Carolina. They're returning a lot on offense, especially Deebo Samuel. He's just an electric player that when he's in the game, South Carolina is so much better. Obviously, him getting hurt last year derailed them. You could tell they just weren't the same team without him. So him being back is going to be great for them. I really like their defense. Will Muschamp, you can always know he's going to put the guys in great position to play. But it comes down to them. I have them just edging out Florida, who I think is going to have a great year this year. The winner of that game I have is going to be in the conference championship with the East. What about you?
Skeptical on the South Carolina pick for the second straight year, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I like for Georgia to repeat.
Okay.
I think it's not really going to be close. The amount of talent that they have, what Kirby Smart has done there, they're going to have a great defense. That's a given. You got Jake Fromm, a returning quarterback who has experience in big games. And then I mentioned Swift, the running back. There's plenty of pieces for the Georgia Bulldogs. So I like for them to go undefeated, but just a couple of teams that I think will have good seasons and be up near the top of the East. I like your Florida pick. I think Dan Mullen is going to do kind of what Gus Malzahn did when he initially came back to Auburn. For years, we've been hearing Florida fans talk about how bad the offense is, and we've joked about it on this show. But I like for their offense to improve, and I think they'll have a good season. 9-3 is my prediction. Missouri, I have them as kind of a surprise team. I like for Missouri to go 8-4, 9-3 there.
Yeah.
They have tough games: Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina. But really, other than that, the schedule in the East is fairly easy.
Yeah.
So I like for Drew Lock, the quarterback. He could have gone to the NFL last season, but he decided to come back, and he's got some good returning pieces, offensive line and receivers. So that's how I see the East shaking out. I think the Georgia Bulldogs come away.
Yeah, and I like Georgia too. I think some people might think, yeah, John, then why aren't you jumping on the Georgia bandwagon? I'm like, it's not as much that I don't want to. I really think they're going to be a good team, but I think when it came down to it, when you're looking at some of the schedules, South Carolina has probably the easiest schedule of who they get for the West. They get to host TAMU, and they go to Ole Miss, so that's definitely going to help them for sure. And they're also playing Georgia like week 2, and they're playing Florida in early November. So their two toughest game is spread out. So that's one of the things I really like them to get gelled, and if they can get that early win against Georgia early in the year, that's going to be great for them. And I think it's doable because they're going to have the offense to compete against that defense. And I just really like Florida rebounding this year, and because Florida, the only missing piece has been that quarterback. They find a quarterback, which I'm pretty confident Dan Mullen will find a quarterback, at least enough in Philip Franks to get by. Philippe Franks, my bad. But that's why I feel how I feel about this. It's more schedule than anything else, what it comes down to. And Georgia's got Auburn and LSU out of the West. So when you compare that to, it's going to be a lot harder for them to repeat.
Yeah. Talk to us about the West. How do you see that shaking?
I have it as a repeat of last year, including an Auburn Iron Bowl win. I have the winner of the Iron Bowl winning it all. I think both Auburn and Alabama are probably going to be definitely the top 2 teams in the division again. And when it comes down to it, I know you can talk about rankings and success for Alabama, but I really feel like when you're in doubt, go with the best defense. And I think this is probably going to be the best Auburn defense we've ever seen. It's just loaded with so much talent on the front end, and the secondary is not one you want to play with either with Dean and company. I just really like this Auburn team as a whole, but especially on the defensive side. And Gus Malzahn is going to be able to score points with a guy returning like Stidham at quarterback. I'm really excited to see. Their only real question, I think, is who besides Ryan Davis is going to be the other receiver to go to. There's plenty of guys that it could be, with Will Hastings and all being hurt. So that's really the only that's the only real questions I have is the receiving core a little bit. But other than that, I'm excited for this division race in a whole. But I really like the two of them, and then right behind them I have LSU. I think LSU is going to bounce back. They're going to be sitting at 9-3 respectively. Their only losses I see are going to be Auburn and Bama, and then I have them losing to Florida because I'm high on Florida as well. But I think that's going to be a great game and all. So how do you see it?
Well, I look for 3 teams to actually go 9-3. I've got Mississippi State. I think they'll lose to the traditional powers, LSU, Alabama, and Auburn. So that kind of puts them out. And then I see Auburn and LSU both having good years at 9-3. I think Auburn will lose that Washington game 1. I think LSU will lose against Miami game 1. So I have both of them having 2 conference losses. And really, for me, I have a rematch of the national title. I've got Alabama finishing at 11-1. I think they're going to have a good season. Tua, I'm really impressed with how he came into that game. And he is a young player, but I think his poise and just his passing ability will lead Alabama to the championship game. But so that's the way that I see it shaking out. I've got Alabama. I've got Georgia in that SEC championship game.
Yeah.
And if I had to say today, I would probably give the nod to Alabama. But what do we always say? I mean, I reserve the right to change my mind.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. So, Jose, like you said, that's a great pick. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it's a repeat, the national title in the SEC championship game. But so the way I see it, I have that winner of the Iron Bowl, which I think will be Auburn. Again, I think it's a repeat of last year. It's pretty much the same situation. Both teams are so good. It's going to come down to very little things. And I think this Auburn team stepping up on defensively is why they're going to be able to keep that distance, even with it being at home for Bama. So I like them winning against either Florida or South Carolina. I think with the winner of that Florida-South Carolina game being there, I think Auburn will be able to beat either one of them. So that's how I see it. I know plenty of people are going to be upset with that pick. So I expect many comebacks. So let's hear them. I'm ready.
We would love your feedback if
Yes.
you want to comment below. We appreciate you guys watching. We're ready to get the season kicked off.
Yep. All right. See you guys.
All right.